In the southernmost continent, a team of researchers are boring into the ice to collect core samples. As the drilling progresses, fractures appear beneath their base, and the drill begins to descend. Jason narrowly avoids plunging into the crevice, saved in the nick of time by Jack and Frank. Then, Jack daringly leaps over the fissure to recover the samples, but upon his return, the ice gives way beneath him and he tumbles. Fortuitously, he clings on using an axe, and his companions hoist him back up to observe the entire ice shelf fragmenting. Subsequently, Jack participates in the United Nations Global Warming Summit in New Delhi to inform world leaders about the impending new ice age that will cover the Earth in frost. When questioned about the timeline, Jack states that it could take several centuries, but if the rampant use of fossil fuels is not curtailed soon, their progeny will bear the brunt. However, the politicians argue over the financial implications and label Jack's assertions as alarmist rhetoric. Outside the venue, protesters rally against climate change, and a journalist highlights the rare snowfall in the region that is sending the city into disarray. After the summit, Jack encounters Terry, an employee of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, who concurs with Jack's arguments, and they depart together to exchange ideas. A few days later, at Terry's surveillance outpost in Scotland, a staff member detects a massive temperature plunge from a buoy, but his colleague dismisses it as the result of a powerful wave. When Terry returns, they decide not to inform him about it. In Japan, what appears to be an ordinary rainy day abruptly turns into a hailstorm, with massive hailstones wreaking havoc on vehicles and buildings, even causing fatalities. Over in the USA, news of Hurricane Noelani has left weather specialists bewildered. This hurricane is the most powerful one ever documented, claiming hundreds of lives. Aboard the International Space Station, astronauts are startled to observe enormous irregular storms developing in the Earth's atmosphere. Simultaneously, Jack's son Sam is en route to New York with his friend Brian and his romantic interest, Laura. Sam has a fear of flying, which only escalates when the airplane plunges into the colossal storm, inducing turbulence. Suddenly, the pilot alerts passengers to brace for turbulence, prompting everyone to buckle up and grip their seats as the turbulence intensifies and luggage starts tumbling in the aisle. Fortunately, the turbulence subsides quickly, and Sam discovers he's been clutching Laura's hand, forcing him to release it. Upon landing in New York, they are taken aback to see a massive flock of birds heading west, as if fleeing from something. Indeed, farm and zoo animals are exhibiting odd behavior, as if fearful. Sam and his companions attend a contest and perform well, but he can't ignore the continuous flirting from a boy named JD towards Laura. Subsequently, at the monitoring facility, Terry finally observes the buoy recording the decrease in sea temperature. A staff member informs him of what he witnessed earlier, but they soon learn that multiple buoys are transmitting identical data, indicating it's not a system error. Terry chooses to inform Jack that his hypothesis is unfolding rapidly, something unseen since the last ice age 10 millennia ago. The only forecasting model capable of predicting this situation is Jack's. Concurrently, news broadcasts report that Hurricane Noelani is intensifying, and the Coast Guard has shut down the beaches. An operator at a California weather monitoring center is distracted by his girlfriend instead of focusing on his duties. She hears a noise and becomes frightened, but it's just the custodian. The phone rings and the operator receives an urgent call from an LA reporter revealing a hailstorm with hailstones the size of golf balls. The operator turns on the TV and discovers a tornado is beginning to form in LA, so he alerts his superior. The man steps outside and finds that the tornado is larger than usual. Returning to Jack, he and his colleagues monitor the news helicopter reports, which show multiple tornadoes rapidly forming around LA and causing significant destruction. Individuals succumb to fear and attempt to flee, yet even massive vehicles are swept up, and soon structures begin to fall apart as well. The Meteorological Observation Center is impacted and barely manages to remain among the wreckage. Shortly after, the president mandates the halt of all air travel, yet 2 aircraft fail to return promptly and collide in the Midwest. An urgent conference is held at the Global Climate Change Bureau in Washington, D.C., and they share accounts of bizarre and aggressive weather from around the globe. Due to Terry's confirmation, Jack is able to explain that this is occurring due to the North Atlantic currents, which are influenced by the polar ice that's melting as a result of global warming. He also notes that it has just begun, and it will only intensify soon. However, a climate shift is still a hypothesis, so Jack's superior gives him 48 hours to find evidence to present to the government. With the support of Frank, Jason, and NASA's meteorologist Janet, Jack starts intensely working on composing a solid report to the extent that he remains awake for 24 hours. When he finally pauses, his team manages to complete some computations, and they reveal there are only 6 to 8 weeks before a new ice age engulfs the Earth. The following day, Jack receives a call from Sam, who explains he's trapped in New York due to the relentless rainfall flooding the city and resulting in numerous shutdowns. Upon ending his call, he finds out JD has invited his crew to stay at his luxurious condo. Despite the severe weather not yet hitting DC, citizens are already in a state of emergency, emptying supermarkets. Jack meets with the vice president, warning him the situation is severe and they need to commence evacuation. However, his advice falls on deaf ears. Meanwhile, in northern Europe, relentless snow has been falling for the past 24 hours with no end in sight. A search and rescue operation is launched to save the royal family, but due to zero visibility, the helicopters inadvertently fly into the heart of the storm. Soon, the helicopter's components and blades start to freeze, leading to a disastrous crash. Only one pilot survives, but he freezes to death as soon as he steps out. Terry learns of this and sends classified data to Jack, who has a more advanced computer to process it. This is how they uncover a developing hurricane over land, which is an anomaly. In New York, it's been raining non-stop for 3 days and all subway services are suspended, with water gushing from the street manholes. In Canada, the sea level has surged by 25 feet in moments, triggering violent storms and reports of a tropical hurricane. Sam and his friends catch these reports on TV just as the power cuts out, and JD proposes to go find his brother, offering the group a lift. As they depart the building, they witness the city descending into chaos with rising floodwaters. To compound the situation, local zoo staff discover the wolves have escaped. Numerous people are seeking refuge in the National Library. Although a homeless man is denied entry because of his dog, vehicles are immobilized due to the floodwaters, trapping many inside their cars. Sam's group also makes a run for the library, but Laura lags behind to assist a family in a car, injuring her leg in the process. Suddenly, a massive tsunami emerges from nowhere, striking the Statue of Liberty before gradually swallowing the city and causing mass casualties. Sam dashes back to the street to rescue Laura and get her into the library just before the wave engulfs the area and infiltrates the library's ground floor. Shortly after, Jack completes his computations and contacts Terry to alert him that the air is descending too rapidly, spawning storms in Canada, Scotland, and Siberia that are expanding and will soon affect other regions. Their initial 6 weeks estimation was incorrect. The new ice age will begin in just 48 hours. They can't prevent it. They can only strive to save as many lives as possible. At this point, Jack receives a notification about the situation in New York and hastens to join his wife, Lucy. In New York, all the survivors, including a dog, attempt to settle in the library. With no cell service, Sam seeks out a payphone. He ends up navigating through a flooded level to locate it and promptly contacts his parents to reassure them he's all right. Jack updates him on the reality of the situation, urging his son to remain indoors as the storm intensifies and endangers everyone outside. The water level on this floor is rising rapidly, and the flood reaches the ceiling, abruptly ending the call. Laura fears Sam has drowned for a moment, but thankfully, he manages to swim to safety. Subsequently, Laura finds dry clothes for Sam and embraces him to share her body warmth. Shortly after, everyone begins to hear an odd sound, and when they peer outside, they're stunned to see a cargo ship navigating through the inundated streets, crushing the cars beneath it. Meanwhile, Jack resolves to journey to New York to rescue his son despite the risks. His superior knows he can't deter him, but initially requests that he attempt to negotiate with the government again, as they have an appointment with the president himself. During the meeting, Jack delivers a compelling presentation, proposing that individuals in the North relocate as far south as possible, maybe even to Mexico. The vice president once again dismisses Jack's suggestions, but this time he's swiftly reprimanded by the presidential team for his previous neglect. To simplify the plan, Jack marks a line on the USA map indicating the people who can still be evacuated and sadly informs them that it's too late for those further away, as anyone entering that zone will freeze. Following Jack's departure, the deputy leader attempts to oppose the evacuation once more, yet the president dismisses him and sanctions Jack's strategy. At Terry's headquarters, the power is cut and the crew chooses to drink, not anticipating a rescue. In New York, the public library also loses electricity. A vagrant observes the flood ice over, providing an opportunity for people to traverse the ice towards the south, prompting the library survivors to prepare for the same journey. Sam endeavors to dissuade them by sharing Jack's warning, but most disregard him and depart regardless. Only a handful remain behind and, with the plummeting temperature, they begin burning books for warmth, raid vending machines for food, and use rugs as coverings. Outside the city, people regret leaving the shelter of the library as they succumb to the cold. Concurrently, Mexico seals its borders, unable to accommodate additional American evacuees. Gridlocked roads lead people to cross the river illegally into Mexico. Hours later, traffic eases as the U.S. president agrees to absolve all Latin American debt in return for open borders. In a Washington, D.C. hospital, Lucy receives distressing news that panicking individuals fled, leaving no ambulances behind. A colleague suggests a policeman with a snowplow could assist, but the patient requires an ambulance for transport. Lucy insists her colleague evacuate while she remains with the child awaiting proper aid. Meanwhile, Jack is unexpectedly assisted by Frank and Jason in his mission to save Sam. Utilizing Antarctic research equipment, they traverse the frozen terrain in a truck until encountering an obstacle. Now forced to proceed on foot, they use snowshoes and a safety rope. After hours of steady progress, they unknowingly walk atop a building. The glass beneath them shatters, causing Frank to fall and pull the others with him. Jack halts their descent with his axe, but the cracking glass beneath him threatens their safety. Initially, Frank severs the rope connected to their main supply bag, but when this proves insufficient, he cuts his own rope as well. The group calls out in vain as Frank plunges to his demise. Later, Jack and Jason erect a shelter for the night. At the medical facility, an emergency vehicle finally comes to transport Lucy and the ailing individual. In the presidential residence, the leader of the nation is also removed, but shortly after, the second-in-command receives information that the head of state was trapped in the tempest and didn't survive. In the International Orbiting Lab, the space travelers observe a massive cloud engulfing the Earth and capture images to relay to Janet. Upon viewing them, she forecasts that the Canadian blizzard will reach New York in 60 minutes. At the library, Laura's insomnia leads to a conversation with Sam, who finally confesses his affection. Laura reciprocates with a kiss. Come dawn, the crew finds Laura has lapsed into a feverish, unconscious state. They consult a medical reference for her symptoms and examine her leg, finding the wound from earlier has led to sepsis. The reference states immediate penicillin is required, or the leg will be lost. Consequently, Sam elects to scour a freighter for medication, with Brian and JD offering their assistance. The trio arrives at the ship swiftly, oblivious that their scent is being tracked by the escaped zoo wolves. The entrance to the medical area is locked, so Sam exits through a passageway window and cautiously navigates the exterior wall. He shatters the clinic window and infiltrates, then opens the door for his comrades and Brian discovers the penicillin. Sam wishes to return at once, but Brian and JD suggest acquiring food as well. As they forage in the kitchen, the trio is abruptly ambushed by wolves who initiate a pursuit across the ship. One wolf succeeds in biting Jason's leg, so Sam strikes it on the head until it releases his friend and they secure the door behind them. Simultaneously, the storm's eye engulfs New York. Sam observes this and formulates a strategy. He'll decoy the wolves from the room, allowing his friends to seal the door. Then Sam traverses the exterior wall to re-access the window, but inadvertently treads on shattered glass and attracts the wolves' notice prematurely. He promptly starts sprinting, and after several twists, he manages to entrap them in a passageway and secure the door. The wolves move to the corridor's other end to access the kitchen, but Brian and JD have already secured that door as well and are now accumulating provisions. They load all the supplies and an injured JD onto a boat and transport it out of the ship just as the surrounding structures begin icing and collapsing. Brian and Sam are forced to carry JD and rush into the library, where they encounter a warm room just before the remainder of the structure freezes. The group instantly focuses on enhancing the fire's intensity. On the frosty terrain, Jack and Jason continue their journey, but ultimately Jason succumbs to fatigue and Jack is compelled to haul him through the snow. Upon locating the storm's core, he instantly starts digging in the snow, uncovering a vent that he and Jason swiftly enter before the area freezes over. Hours later, Jason awakens to a pitched tent and several fires. Upon seeing Jason, Jack insists on pressing on, dismissing Jason's suggestion to wait, for fear that Sam might not last much longer. As Jack and Jason traverse the storm, they continually stumble upon frozen corpses. They only halt to rest in the tent at night, with Jack musing that while humanity survived one ice age, they may not survive this one if they don't exercise caution. Later, the International Space Station observes the storm subsiding in Europe, revealing the land once more. Concurrently, Jack emerges from the tent and observes clear skies. Navigation becomes easier for Jack and Jason, and they promptly arrive in New York, discovering a fully frozen Statue of Liberty and various ships trapped in ice. When the GPS reveals they're atop the library, Jack is crushed to think his son may be entombed in the snow. Despite this, the pair uncover a break in the snow and access the building via a window. As they survey the area, their hope diminishes, until they spot light beneath a door and open it to find the group healthy and alive, including a recovering Laura. Father and son, Sam and Jack, share a heartfelt reunion. Later in Mexico, the vice president, now the new president, upon learning about the library survivors, publicly admits his error and pledges to launch a major rescue operation for those trapped in the northern states. Rescue helicopters soon arrive in New York and evacuate the group, dog included, also rescuing many others from different buildings. From the International Space Station, astronauts gaze at the Earth, commenting on the unprecedented clarity of the air.